Our second of. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Overshadowed podcast. This will be the only time that we upload this week. We've just been going back to school, and so had to get used to that and had to, of course, schedule in when we're going to do that. But we will be doing that again. We'll be uploading on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and then Saturdays or Sundays. So we're sorry for that. Of course, even though we've been gone, there's been no shortage of insane news. Of course, the story that's been dominating the last week is the fires in Los Angeles, absolutely devastating the entire area. The Mark Zuckerberg's backpedaling on much of the fact-checking organizations, or the way he had set up that system for a long time. The TikTok ban becoming ever more likely in the United States. Donald Trump officially becoming a convicted felon, and Israel's talks with Hamas about releasing the hostages with the looming Trump presidential term, of course. So I think we should just get straight to these Los Angeles fires. So, of course, the death toll is up to 13 now, and more than 62 square miles have been burned. So I can show this video now of the Palisades fire from a plane. Here, I'll skip forward in this. But of course, this is from an airplane. This is just absolutely crazy. You can see the huge area that's just being completely decimated. Now, for a while, this just wasn't being contained at all. Of course, the Palisades fire isn't the only fire that's happened, but it's the least contained and the biggest. I think it's only 11 or 12% contained right now. So, of course, you can see this just absolutely catastrophic damage to this area. Credit to this random guy on Twitter, the Wall Street Apes account. That's where I found this video. But, I mean, of course, this is just the Palisades fire isn't the only fire, and I also have a visual here of this website from the government of the map of the fire. So here's the United States, here's California, and you can see this is just a huge area comparable to these islands here. I mean, there's, like I was saying, the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, or the Hearst fire. There's all this stuff happening, and so the efforts to contain this have been extremely difficult because of the funding cut from the mayor, Karen Bass. And here in a second, I'll also show a visual of her. But this is just devastating. You can see this huge area, 63 entire square miles. So, Karen Bass was actually in Ghana while this was happening, attending the inauguration of the new president. And when confronted by Sky News about her absence in the presence of the fire, this was her response.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them?
So, I didn't play that entire video. It's about 2.5 minutes long, of course, from Sky News. But she basically issues no statement to the citizens of Los Angeles about this at all. And I would really hesitate to say that this is the complete political death of Karen Bass. But with her cutting the fire budget by this almost $17 million, and her very poor response to this, it is a politically devastating moment for her, of course. So So I'm somewhat skeptical to say that she's completely done. It definitely will be difficult for her to run for mayor again. I also had this Dropside News article by Jessica Burbank here. I can show this. So the fire department, like, begged to not cut this funding. So, yeah, here. So, according to Dropsite News, as of May 2nd, 2024, here I can go down here. 86 emergency vehicles were out of commission in Los Angeles because funds had not been allocated to hire sheet metal workers and mechanics to fix them. This includes 40 fire engines, which carry water and are used to fight fires, 36 ambulances, and 10 fire trucks, which carry equipment like ladders and rescue supplies. So this article really goes on to talk about how the fire department was really fighting for this budget cut not to go through, and it still did. And so this obviously, the three major water reservoirs apparently ran dry because of this, which made it extremely difficult to fight this fire. I mean, of course, climate change plays a very crucial role too. I think that California has already warmed on an annual average of about 2 degrees, so definitely a huge impact there. But like I was saying, this is just a horrible situation for Karen Bass. And I've been talking for a while now, so I want to kind of ask you, what do you think about this, Colin?
I mean, I hate to politicize it, but yeah, this is a large part on her. Like, why did she go to Ghana, Africa? She was warned by experts, hey, there's a fire danger.
Yeah.
And she still left and all of that. It was fueled, or at least a lot of it, by brush, and the governor and mayor didn't do anything like they usually do. They usually chop down like a bunch of and clear a bunch of land to stop it. They did not do that. And the fire chief, again, like you were saying, said that the budget cut, again, I think it was $17.6 million, really hindered it. I mean, and I think you're right. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know how she's gonna come back from this.
Yeah, so I think the original budget cut was $23 million, but the fire department managed to actually claw back $5 million of that. So, like, of course, Karen, before this happened, she didn't leave after this started happening. I think she left January 4th for Ghana. The fire started happening on the 7th, and she was back on the 8th. And while she was gone, she was sending messages on social media to the people of Los Angeles. But yeah, much of the story here is, of course, political. I mean, Donald Trump, of course, has shared no shortage of lies about this. He's been talking about how she vetoed this, like, Water Protection Act, whatever, and it actually turned out to not even be a bill that existed. So just like people capitalizing on the political effects of this, but it's just like an extremely devastating situation, of course, for everyone involved. And I mean, there's been evacuations all across the city now, and this is just really unprecedented. And of course, people need to start, mayors of towns, governors, they need to start preparing for these sorts of stories, because they're going to become ever increasingly more common for especially the United States, because of global warming. Like, if you're a mayor of someplace in Florida, or of course like what happened in North Carolina, or really anywhere in the U.S. that's really prone to natural disasters. I mean, we are in Colorado. There could easily be a wildfire that's this bad here. We have trees everywhere, so people are going to need to be really ready to deal with these sorts of things and not to be caught off guard, like, of course, Karen Bass was.
I would agree with that for sure. I think part of it, Ron DeSantis in Florida, they always do a great job. They have, with hurricanes and things like that, they pretty much have that whole system figured out of, like, the whole federal aid thing, helping people, opening up all these places to go. Yeah, I think they were just really unprepared. And I guess there's no excuse for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say the evacuation efforts in Florida have been good. I mean, there's definitely like private insurance it's fleeing Florida. Insurance companies are they're like evacuating Florida because homes in Florida are becoming completely uninsurable, and so you have to like talk about that side of the story too. Of course, insurance companies. I mean, of course, the insurance companies that insure all these Florida homes, they're gonna get bailed out by the Fed 100%. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Of course, it's gonna happen. But this is just like insurance companies are gonna have to get ready for this. Politicians are gonna have to get ready for this, and that's really all that I really have to say about that. So our next topic is this Mark Zuckerberg kind of backpedaling on much of the, I guess the right would call it, censorship under his Facebook or Meta. So I have a clip here to show of Mark Zuckerberg.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender.
So I think we can kind of end it there. But of course, this is sort of the death of the fact checker era that was kind of ushered in a couple years ago and was really prevalent during the whole BLM era in 2020 especially. But I mean, personally, for community notes, I'll talk about the rest of the stuff that he said for past this, but I really just don't like community notes a lot, even though they are useful a lot of the time, because I think that a lot of people see them as just whatever the community notes say and the sentiment that they're trying to express is automatically the truth, and they don't spread blatant lies on Twitter, but a lot of the stuff that they say is I heard Sagaran Jetty talk about this the other day, where he was talking about Ukraine openly assassinating Russian generals, and then community notes was actually, this is a common wartime practice. And if you saw that, you would just kind of think, oh yeah, this guy's an idiot, this guy's a complete moron, of course this is normal, and this isn't out of the blue at all. When, I mean, Ukraine is a client state of the United States, and an escalation between Ukraine and Russia is effectively an escalation between the U.S. and or NATO and Russia too. So, not to just harp on that singular point, but I personally don't really like community notes a lot. But on this broader story, I'm sort of skeptical as to why he's actually doing this. I mean, if you were to believe the reason that he provides, it's because he doesn't believe in censorship anymore and his approach has failed. But realistically, it's just to carry favor between him and the Trump administration, like many CEOs have now begun doing. And it's like I would be interesting to hear what you think about that. I know you don't have Twitter, even though I'm trying to convince you to get Twitter, which you definitely should. But like, what do you think about that?
I mean, yeah, I think that just it really shows with starting with like Twitter and X, social media platforms are starting to move to support free speech. And I think Mark Zuckerberg, I feel like this is definitely politically motivated. Like,
of course, yeah.
He's just I think he's known for doing that, like sort of changing his positions along with like who's in power. But I think it's certainly a good thing. Obviously, free speech. He does bring up a good point that even if just 1% of posts are incorrectly censored, that's like millions of people. So yeah, I think that was a.
I mean, like, the whole quote-unquote move towards free speech, it's just like a way to please the right. And Elon Musk, obviously buying Twitter. Elon Musk, I mean, I've definitely said this before here, but Elon Musk obviously didn't buy Twitter because he's this free speech god and because he believes this. He bought it so it could be his right-wing social media outlet, and that's basically what it's become. The amount of Nazis on Twitter has absolutely skyrocketed, and it's like there's still censorship there. I could go back to, I've gone back to before when Ken Klippenstein published this list of things that the Trump administration wasn't happy about in regards to J.D. Vance, and they basically banned him off the platform and shut down the entire discussion. Or when Laura Loomer shared sentiment against Elon Musk and he disabled her subscription service. I mean, that's a crazy thing to do, to insult Elon Musk and to have money taken away from you from your subscription service. Twitter and Facebook, more Twitter than Facebook, but both of these are vital sources of news. I mean, it's not like a vital source of news, but everybody is on Twitter. You can't really be like a big politician or a big journalist or a big this and that without having Twitter, because it's the big communication app that everybody uses, and it's been turned into this just horrible place. I mean, I wouldn't say before that Twitter, not to go away from the original point, I wouldn't say it was like really amazing before Elon Musk. And Facebook right now, Facebook isn't amazing now, but to try and make this sort of move towards free speech is just a way to say that they're moving towards the right, in my opinion, to please Donald Trump, which I don't think is a good thing. Like, would you agree with that?
I mean, I think you don't believe that the moving towards free speech is good?
I mean, I don't think that it's really a move towards free speech. I just think that it's a move to the right in general.
Well, yeah, but the right supports free speech.
They're trying to censor all these Palestinian activists.
Who is censoring? Elon Musk does not represent the Republican Party.
Yeah, but, Elon Musk is also, like, effectively the vice president right now. He's an extremely powerful person. If you're going to make this claim that the right supports free speech, I just fundamentally disagree with that in every way.
It's like a couple people.
They've been censoring pro-Palestinian.
Elon Musk?
Not just Elon Musk. Like, the entire... Donald Trump has said that we should punish people legally for burning American flags. He said that we should deport pro-Palestinian activists. His administration is gearing up to punish people who share pro-Palestine sentiment. And there's like a myriad of other things you could talk about.
Extremely isolated examples of, by and large, Republicans are for free speech.
Like it's small issues to like deport people who share the sentiment. I mean, it's not just
Elon Musk when buying Twitter and removing all that. That is free speech. He's restoring all these people's accounts, like Kanye West and
then banning people for like sharing sentiment against him. I mean, Donald Trump was not banned because He shared ideas that were bad. Donald Trump didn't say free speech. He incited the most violent attack on our democracy for 100 years. It was incitement, and it's against the law, and he should be in jail right now for that act. He was banned for that because of that reason. And Kanye West, I mean, anti-Semitism is free speech, and he was not banned for that. But like, when you talk about Elon Musk did not restore free speech to Twitter. He's canceled people's Tesla's orders for saying stuff against him. Like I just said, he's
but again,
promoted right-wing voices way more.
Yeah, but it outweighs canceling a couple people's Tesla orders. Like, by and large, and again, like I was saying earlier,
censoring some of the biggest, even right-wing voices on Twitter for not even disagreeing with him on, like, most issues. Just like the H-1B thing, and Laura Loomer's like, hey, Elon Musk, you're an idiot, and you get completely removed. I've never defended Laura Loomer on, like, anything, and this is a rare time I'll actually defend her. She shared sentiment against this guy, and now she's completely... Her subscription program was removed. Like I said, Ken Klippenstein. Like, you can say anybody who shares... If you're a big account on Twitter and you share sentiment against Elon Musk, you are very likely to get banned, even if what you say is protected under the First Amendment.
Again, but all these millions of Americans that are now able to share their thoughts freely that aren't just these massive accounts, I feel like it definitely is towards free speech. Just censoring a few people
like the biggest accounts on the entire platform.
Yeah, I think it's worth censoring a few big accounts to allow hundreds of millions of Americans.
Like, you act like it's an exchange. It's not an exchange. You don't have to censor.
Of course, it's not.
You don't have to exchange. That's like saying that, like, that's like saying it like, oh, this isn't perfect. Like, Elon Musk doesn't believe in free speech, and he's actively censoring people, and he lied about being this free speech idealist. Like, again, it's not just. It doesn't have to be an exchange. You don't have to just openly censor people in order to have a platform which shares free speech. Of course, Americans can share free speech on Twitter, but if your sentiment leans towards the right, your posts are much more likely to be shared. I mean, on my account, I share mostly left-wing stuff, and most of my stuff never gets any views. And I mean, you could say that, of course, that I have like 500 followers and they're all bots. But most of the biggest accounts on Twitter are all right-wing voices, like the Donald Trump, these people that just share openly pro-Nazi statements are promoted on Twitter all the time. I'm recommending their posts all the time, even though I never even interact with them. I don't comment, I don't hate on them, and I still get shared them all the time. And there's Elon Musk, the biggest account on Twitter, who's like artificially boosted his own account. Andrew Tate, which I never interact with and see his stuff all the time, like a human trafficker. Donald Trump News. All these accounts are being promoted way more than left-wing voices because this is Elon Musk's ideological
there's
project.
Something in the algorithms. He recoded the algorithms to support right-wing people.
Yeah, of course.
Is there proof of that? Did he...
Yeah, all of the biggest accounts on Twitter are mostly right-wing. And I think you can ask Grok on Twitter right now what you're like. There's like a social credit score on Twitter that you have, and if you lean more to the right, it's better. I mean, we can share this right now. I can pull this up. I can search this up on Google and share this right now if you want to. But Steve Bannon went against this really heavily, and he was talking about this. Do you want me to pull that up?
Yeah,
Steve Bannon here. I'm gonna search this up. I want to show this, okay? Here. I'm going to show Steve Bannon, here, search up what you're going to search up. So, Steve Bannon went against this really heavily. And he called it, some crazy CCP thing. And, I mean, Of course, I don't really agree with Steve Bannon on most issues, but this is one that I definitely support that. Here, what were you looking at?
I'm just trying to find if he altered the algorithms to support conservatives.
All right, here. All right, so the best that I could find was this thing from this people called Breaking Points, but I can show this because they do play this clip, but they do have their logo on it. But I mean, it's fine. We should really, yeah. Here.
This is what he's going to. He's got a glass jaw. He can't take because of the the autism or where he's on the spectrum. He's clearly not. He's got the maturity of an 11-year-old. You can tell that. But it's obvious. He can't take criticism. One of his weaknesses is that he needs to be loved. He needs the masses to love him. You can tell he's on the stage. He needs that glory. For instance, I don't give a damn. Right? As long as the objective, that's why 12 o'clock guys are my movie. It's the objective. Whatever happens doesn't matter. It's the objective. It's the objective that counts and nothing else. They say it win at all costs. Well, hey, you have to win. You don't need anything else. He must have adoration. You can tell that. It lights him up. So then when the platform, when his apparatus turns against him, and particularly people that cheered him saying, hey, we hate what you're doing to this country. We know now that you're lying to us, bald-faced lie. These are not higher skilled people. When they turn, all of a sudden he has to go to what's the Chinese credit score. This is to have a digital getup and to only have raised up what praises him. That is like the little boy's mentality. If I want to be the superhero, I want to put the cape on and kind of skip around.
So you gotta say.
So, yeah, like I was saying, it's basically like Elon Musk's own ideological project to support whatever he believes and to censor anybody who disagrees with him. It's absolutely crazy. Like Andrew Tate, for example, was the second most influential account on Twitter in, I think, 2023. I think it was 2024, actually. Second, one of those years. Even though Andrew Tate really peaked in 2022, and his popularity has been fading ever since then, he's being supported by less and less and less people increasingly. Nobody really likes Andrew Tate anymore because he's a piece of garbage and he raped a 15-year-old girl. But his profile is still being shared so widespread because of this project that Elon Musk has had. And relating it to Facebook, of course, that's this direction that it's going in to try to please these right-wing people like Donald Trump and, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. It's just an alarming thing that's happening, in my opinion. And I don't believe that this whole right-wing ideal of free speech is really backed up by any of their actions, and they only truly believe in free speech when it supports their own personal agendas. So what'd you find?
Well, I mean, it looks like, so there was a research study done, and this was before Elon Musk bought Twitter.
Elon Musk, but pre-Elon Musk Twitter wasn't good. I don't think it was good, but I think it's worse now.
But before that, Republicans were censored. They suspended 35.6% of the Republicans in the study compared to 7.7% of the Democrats. So that's like 4 times as many Republicans were being censored on Twitter before Elon Musk bought it. So that's clearly censorship.
I mean, for these social media platforms, I've always said this, to share some of my right-wing sentiment on this idea. I don't think that you can say you are a free speech platform without allowing anti-Semitism and hate speech and racism and sexism, because those are all free speech. And if you want to be a platform that truly is free speech, you have to allow that speech on top of all the speech on the other side of the aisle too. And of course, incitement isn't free speech. And like I said, Donald Trump was banned for Twitter not because he shared his great ideas that the left didn't like. It was because he incited a coup, incited an attempted coup. And you really have to think what you are going to be as a social media platform. Instagram, or like Snapchat. Snapchat doesn't claim to be... I've never actually even used Snapchat, so I could use like... what's another social media platform? YouTube doesn't really claim to be this crazy free speech platform because it doesn't allow this hate speech and anti-Semitism. Like, you can't go on Twitter and post a video saying like all this anti-Semitic stuff and racism and sexism without having your video seriously tampered with by the algorithm and being suppressed all the time. And Twitter doesn't say that. But it's good, in my opinion, that Elon Musk has allowed these people on his platform to say this stuff. Do I believe that he should be spreading it purposely all the time? No. Do I think that it should be promoted more than everything else? No. But it's good that it exists. But if you say that you're a free speech platform, like Twitter is now, or like Facebook is now making the direction towards, you have to allow all sorts of speech, including, in Elon Musk's circumstances, criticism of him, criticism of his coalitions, criticism of his super PAC, the exposing of his super PAC, the exposing of people that he ideologically resonates with, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Twitter is not a free speech platform. Neither is YouTube, neither is Instagram, and neither likely is Facebook going to be. Is really like that's really the last that I have to say about that. It's this alarming direction and this sort of virtue signaling towards, like, this kind of like the woke right. This virtue signaling towards the right, saying, "Hey guys, I believe in your speech and I believe in your ideas, and you can come here and I won't censor your anti-Semitism and I won't censor this like incitement," which like should be censored. Incitement by definition should be censored. But yeah, like, do you have anything else to say on that?
Mm-mm.
All right. So now we have the impending TikTok ban.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, it looks like it's going to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It's probably going to get banned. I think that's obviously a good thing.
It could not. It could not. Donald Trump said that, not to like butt in, but Donald Trump did state, if you want TikTok to stay alive, you should support me, because that was what was politically advantageous to him at the time. I mean, of course, banning TikTok is a suicide, is political suicide for young voters, even though I believe that it needs to be done. But
Yeah.
it could, what I want to say is, it could not be banned. He could realistically not keep it from getting banned. But yeah, continue.
How would he do that, though? Because the Supreme Court is set to...
I mean, he would just have to, like, signal that he didn't want that to happen, you know? He did say that like I just said, he did say that he was the person that was going to uphold it, and he could also, like, review the law. I mean, he could always just, like, veto the law itself and get rid of the law. But continue.
Okay. So, basically, yeah, obviously, China is not liking this at all. They're criticizing the decision. It has been banned successfully before in places like India.
Yeah, India.
Yeah, India used to be where most of TikTok's users came from. They banned it, and then they largely transitioned to other social media sites, showing that it can be done successfully. A lot of people are wondering how it would work. So basically, if it was banned, TikTok technically could just like take it, remove it from the App Store, and just block access to it for American users. But they probably won't do that. It's widely expected that the United States government will force app operators like Google and Apple to remove TikTok from their platforms, so you won't be able to download it anymore. And then it sounds like if you do have it downloaded, most likely it will just not be able to receive any security updates or just regular updates, which means that hackers, it will be very vulnerable, and it will probably be, it just won't work within like a few months or something like that.
Yeah, so it probably realistically wouldn't work to just like delete it from everybody's phones. But I've been really watching the reaction of many people online, especially people in, Gen Z, of course, and they have not been happy. There's been a lot of memes about the U.S. government we're in crisis, and they just respond by issuing a TikTok ban. Like we were saying earlier, much of the reason that TikTok is being banned, in my opinion, is because of the pro-Palestine sentiment that is harbored on TikTok, of course, and many people, both on the left and the right, to be fair, but particularly on the right, don't like that sentiment, and they want it banned, so it's become...
That's not why it's being banned.
Yeah, well, it's part of it is the China thing.
They've been trying to ban it for years, though. It's not like a main reason.
Yeah, but that's the reason why it's been so successful recently. Like, it's so close right now, particularly because of that. I mean, part of it definitely is China. Part of it is the pro-Palestine stuff. Like, you can't, many people in Congress have been out about that. Much of the reason has been that. I think the main reason is the China thing, but also it's sort of that, which which is why it's become kind of bipartisan. But I can kind of step across the aisle in this circumstance and say, you know what? It's a risk to our national security. TikTok is fundamentally one of the biggest risks to our security as a nation that exists right now. The amount of data that China is collecting on every citizen is just mind-boggling. I mean, they have so much data right now, even, and more and more kids are being born into an era and an age with a smartphone always in their hands. I mean, I went out to breakfast this morning and I saw this family with 3 kids, and they were all on phones. I mean, there were 3 separate phones for them. I don't know what was happening. Maybe there was a kid's phone and then both their parents' phones, but it kind of looked like these little 5-year-olds had their own phones. Not to say that I know for sure that that's what it was, but kids are becoming more and more and more and more online. So if they're all using TikTok, they're therefore giving over more and more of their information to China, and it's a huge chip that China can play in the cyber warfare kind of era of warfare. So yeah, but the thing is, what I'm trying to say is that I definitely support that. Do you support it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this has been going on for a while. Of course, Biden was running again, trying to become president again, and he probably wouldn't have signed that because maybe he would go from losing 400 electoral college votes to 430 electoral college votes. In his eyes, it probably would have made him only have a 70% chance to win instead of a 90% chance to win. But yeah, really just, it's been crazy to watch the reaction by many people in my generation and many people that are 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 to just see this and just saying that it's open censorship when really it's not. It's a big bargaining chip for China.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say on that?
Yeah.
All right, so now Donald Trump is officially a felon, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump is now officially a felon, but he was given an unconditional discharge by a judge, and that means that he will not face any prison time. And so I'm still kind of thinking about this. Many people would say that felons should not be able to run for office. And I think I would probably agree with that, but I'm still kind of considering it. I mean, you could talk about political persecution, and I think that this sort of is an example. Of course, Donald Trump covering up his affair and his payments to Stormy Daniels, the $130,000 and the tax write-off, that is a crime, and it is a felony, and also the main reason why he was prosecuted for this, really, this thing that really doesn't matter that much is because his name is Donald Trump, and because he is running against Biden, and the Biden DOJ, kind of prosecuted him because of that. I mean, he should be punished for what he did, But like the whole unconditional discharge, like he should at least be fine. People before were talking about he faced up to 4 years in jail, and then it was just a fine, and now it's just like an unconditional discharge. But he should be punished for this. But do I really think it was the most egregious crime ever? Like, no, it wasn't. It really didn't matter that much. But Donald Trump has committed a ton of other crimes, like, of course, the January 6th insurrection, hiring all these Polish immigrants to work on his stuff, the whole thing when he was a real estate agent in New York, or his dad was, and the Trump organization was found to openly discriminate against black people trying to buy apartments. So, I mean, look, in my opinion, I'll say allegedly, this guy's a criminal. He commits crimes, but this is not the worst of those crimes, and it kind of says a lot that this was the only of one of his crimes that he was really ever sentenced for. This guy's just kind of bulletproof when it comes to these types of prosecutions. He always gets away with it. Both of the impeachments against him, all of the stuff about, like I was talking about, the racism in renting people apartments, and the other stuff I was saying, he's gotten away with all of that. So, very lucky man. I remember, I'll let you speak in a second, but I remember in 2021, 2020, 2022, people were saying, oh, you're going to need a bulletproof lawyer. You're going to need the best damn lawyer in the world. And he got a pretty good lawyer, but apparently all the cases against him were not strong enough. Apparently there wasn't enough evidence in any of them. So what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally political weaponization.
Like that specific one?
Yeah. The whole hush money thing. Yeah, because the case, it doesn't really matter at all. He basically just said the money was used for legal expenses. And yeah, that's a crime, but that's understandable if he didn't want people to find out, because it was right around the 2016 election. He was trying to win, obviously, so if that would have leaked out, probably it would have made, it probably would have made a small impact, but I feel like, yeah, it just doesn't really matter that much. So, but now, of course, everyone's going to go around saying Trump's a felon and all that. I think the whole
They've said that for a while, yeah.
Yeah, that, a felon shouldn't be able to run for office. I think it's totally just really depends and all that. Of course, if somebody, kills somebody, then you shouldn't be able to. But, this, again, I'll just go back. It doesn't really matter that much. It's kind of yeah.
About that, I would say, realistically, like I was saying, this doesn't matter, but I mean, like I said, I'm still kind of considering whether I think a felon should be able to run for office. And like I was saying, with evangelicals, the impact on the 2016 race, one of the main reason why Mike Pence was Donald Trump's VP pick was because he was so popular among evangelicals. And it's one of the rare circumstances in which the VP pick actually significantly matters towards the electorate. If Donald Trump didn't win that block amongst evangelicals, he definitely could have lost. It's very feasible that he could have lost. And with that sort of thing, having sex with a porn star, you're very, very likely those evangelicals definitely do not like that at all. So it's, for sure, I mean, it's kind of understandable. On one side, you could say it's understandable, oh, you don't want people to know that you did this, it's embarrassing, but also, you did do it, and you should be, if we should know who we're electing to government, to present that perspective, people should know who they're voting for. So, I'll say that.
Yeah.
For the political persecution, part of it is, part of it kind of isn't. He should be held accountable for what he did. But now we have our, I also have this. So, here. This is kind of from a random person on Twitter, but I did find this kind of interesting. So, credit to Deadly Flying Tomato. But these are the countries that convicted felon Donald Trump will not be allowed into after tomorrow, or like where felons aren't allowed. So, of course, the U.S., Canada, not much of Europe actually, excluding the U.K., much of South America, Argentina, or denied if discovered, including Argentina, completely denied. China, India, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, Kenya. So this isn't like insanely significant. Of course, he's the president of the most powerful country in the world, so he can go wherever the hell he wants. But I just found that kind of intriguing to that. If you're a felon, even if you committed this crime and you weren't the president-elect, you wouldn't be able to go to these places. So yeah, now we can move to our next segment.
Yeah. So our next segment is the Israel hostages, or at least some of them, might be released before Trump takes office. It sounds like, it looks like at least some of the hostages will be released. And I think with this, it's certainly a step in the right direction, getting the hostages back. But I don't think there should be like a massive like ceasefire or anything like that, because really the only way to win against terrorists is to just stop them and prevent them from doing something like that in the future. Yeah,
so to the point of, I am really gonna Netanyahu is the reason that all of these hostages are currently still in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu, if you seriously believe that Netanyahu actually currently cares about the hostages still, I don't even know what to say to you, because he obviously and clearly doesn't. He saved 4 in like a massacre where they killed more than 1,000 people. But if Netanyahu wanted the hostages home, he could have them home right now. And Israel has presented all of these arrangements to Hamas, saying, look, we will do this if Hamas has been like, we'll release all the hostages for a ceasefire, and then Israel inserts a poison pill into the agreement to purposely kill it, because it's a bad thing for Netanyahu. Because, of course, this is a broader thing. Netanyahu needs this war to continue on if he wants any chance to stay out of jail, because once the war is over, then there's elections, then Netanyahu loses. Probably. He probably lose. He's lost much of his popularity since October 7th of 2024. Or October 7th of 2023. But he will lose that, and then they've killed all these deals, and Hamas actually, after October 7th, taking these hostages, actually offered to give them back immediately in exchange, not an invasion, just for not a ground invasion happening. So Hamas offered Israel to still be able to strike inside of the Gaza Strip with missiles, and just if they didn't do a ground invasion, to immediately return all the hostages. And of course, Israel didn't respect that. Before October 7th, Egypt warned Israel about this impending attack, and they did absolutely nothing about it. They actually diverted troops to the West Bank. So I don't know how successful this endeavor will be for both Netanyahu and the state of Israel. He definitely doesn't care about the hostages anymore at all. And Donald Trump, there's a chance, to give credit to Donald Trump, he has kind of shared the sentiment that he wants the war over. And he might just want his legacy to not be determined by his inability to stop the Gaza war from ending. So he might be able to stop this. I hope that this war ends in a ceasefire. Like my monologue about a month ago, I said, if this war were to end right now, Hamas would have won very clearly. Yeah. And the more this goes on, it doesn't get less like that. It gets more like that, because their recruiting potential has skyrocketed and continues to skyrocket because of all of the Israeli war crimes that have been committed. Not to let Hamas off the hook. Of course, Hamas is a terrorist organization. Israel is a terrorist state.
How?
Because
Do you think what's going on right now is a genocide?
Yeah, of course.
How? Israel has has taken more precautions than any other nation in history to ensure that civilians are not killed.
That's just propaganda.
That's totally true. Okay. I'll tell you some examples. Israel's operation at the hospital that everyone's talking about, that the media only says is bad. Once again, they took unique precautions. Reporters say that doctors accompany the forces to help Palestinian patients if needed. They were also reported to be carrying food, water, and medical supplies for civilians inside. Israel is even giving out their military maps to civilians so they can conduct localized evacuations. And this, too, has never been done in war. Israel has made over 70,000 direct phone calls, dropped 7 million flyers, sent over 13 million text messages, and left over 15 million pre-recorded voicemails to notify civilians that they should leave combat areas, when the strikes would be, where they would be, and what route they should take, and where they should go. They even deployed drones with speakers and dropped giant speakers by parachute, which began broadcasting for civilians to leave combat areas once they hit the ground. Israel, if they have complete air superiority, because, and Hamas evidently doesn't have any air force. After they were elected 20 years ago, they basically just turned it into a dictatorship, took billions from the people, and just built terror tunnels underground. So Israel could totally just go into the place, bomb it with F-35s, and just turn it into a parking lot. But they haven't.
Which is what they've done.
They haven't.
Gaza is a parking lot, basically.
How so? Bro, they're literally, the civilian to combat and kill ratio is nearly 1-to-1. In urban combat, that's uncalled for. According to the EU and the UN, normally 80 to 90% of civilians are the ones killed in combat. Well, this is 50%. It's unheard of.
70% of the people killed in Gaza have been women and children, according to the UN, which doesn't, there's a ton of children in Gaza. I mean, that's a really, really loaded state. Is that from your monologue that you're going to do?
I probably wouldn't do the monologue about that, but it's just, it's factually wrong to say it's a genocide, because if they wanted to commit a genocide, why haven't they just blown the whole place up? There's actually been more births than deaths in the Gaza Strip.
Well, that's just because of the Muslim culture. Where they just have they've always had kids all the time. That's an extremely loaded statement to say all of these things.
Yeah, but you can't say you're not careful.
That's a lot to say, of course, but to kind of address some of those, to talk about the hospital, I don't know which hospital you're talking about.
It was the Al-Shifa hospital.
Oh, the Al-Shifa hospital, okay. Well, that was a really long time ago when the international community, and there was still outcry against much of the crimes that Israel was committing. But at the beginning of their assault, the international community cared much greater about the crimes that Israel was committing, and they've gradually cared less and less and less. They've had to provide less and less and less explanation for all the crimes that they've been committing. So, look, at Al-Shifa, it was a really crazy time. There was some credit to give to Israel. There was some good stuff that they did there. But to say that they've taken the amount of precautions that they have is, they haven't taken precautions to prevent civilian death. And, according to analysis by an independent sound company, this was from Al Jazeera, but a documentary from Al Jazeera, but the company which analyzed this was not affiliated with Al Jazeera. They analyzed the audio coming, the story of Hind, right? Hind Rajab, the tiny child which was killed by Israel. So, this is a pretty long story, but she was trapped in this car, she was begging for help, and she called for an ambulance. Israel approved the ambulance to go through to help her, then just instantly bombed it. They were tracking it with the drone, and Israel was either in that circumstance extremely stupid or just committing crimes. And so they blew up that ambulance, and she was begging for help, but before that, when the car wasn't turned over, her mother was there driving the car, and a tank shot the car, not with an explosive round, but with a bunch of bullets from a machine gun. And sound analysis revealed that there's a 97% chance that the bullets were coming from a place where the civilians were visible in the vehicle. So there's a 97% chance that the Israelis could see the children inside. I mean, I've listened to interviews from journalists inside of Gaza, and they're all starving. Israel has systematically killed journalists, specifically targeting them in order to prevent them from reporting on what's going on. They destroyed the Al Jazeera office in the West Bank. There's, you did say a lot of stuff, and I can't just remember it all. What was the rest of the stuff that you said?
Basically, the main things were just all the precautions that Israel has taken. Of course, you're going to hear about all those, the poor girl and all that, of course, it's sad and all that. But these things aren't really being reported on, that they're dropping millions of flyers and literally giving their military maps, which has never been done in history.
I mean,
so that these people can stay safe.
About the flyers are basically just propaganda telling the Palestinian people
where the bombs are going to be.
Well, some of them are. Most of them are telling them to go help Israel because Israel's the good guys, and Israel look. Israel has called these civilians, and they've told them exactly where the safe zones are going to be, and they've told them exactly where to go, and then they've actually just straight up bombed the areas that are supposed to be safe zones. So, look, good on Israel for sending the civilians into the safe zones, but it's their fault for just killing them anyway, in my opinion, because they did, and they have the entire time. The safe zones are not safe. If you remember when that bomb from Boeing was dropped on the refugee camp inside of the Gaza Strip and just burned a bunch of people alive, that was inside of a safe zone. If you know all the refugee camps where there's one Hamas baddie and thousands of people there, or hundreds of people there, not thousands, they dropped 2,000-pound bombs on them. It is very obvious at this point that Israel is purposely targeting civilian infrastructure.
I wonder why. Maybe it's because all these tunnels are built under civilian infrastructure, and the Hamas militants don't wear uniforms. They blend in with the population. That way they can get all this international pressure to stop the war, and then Hamas survives. That's their goal. Build pressure, build all these people saying Israel is doing a genocide and all that. That way Israel pulls out and Hamas lives another day.
When you for one, saying that it's so Hamas, so that Israel pulls out and Hamas lives another day. If Israel continued their war for another year, this war is unwinnable for Israel right now. It's completely impossible for them to win. There is absolutely nothing that Israel can do to win. There is a 0% possibility that they can kill every Hamas baddie. There is no way that they can convince the Palestinian people that they're not just systematically killing them. So they have one option, end the war right now. Everybody, 50% of the men in Gaza join Hamas. Hamas's recruitment skyrockets and they become extremely powerful. They continue the war, and then after it ends, that effect is amplified, or you just kill everyone in the Gaza Strip, which is the path that Israel is currently going down.
They have not done. Why haven't they just blown everything up?
They've done that. They've done that. They've blown everything up.
They haven't? Then why is the civilian to combatant ratio 1-to-1? If they just
the civilian to combatant ratio is not 1-to-1. In fact,
yes,
it's just a complete lie. 40,000 plus civilians have been killed in Gaza, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. But many people, that's not the same as Hamas. 20?
Let's see. Wait, hang on.
Israel, here
1-to-1.
You can look. From a conservative...
Yeah, again, the genocide claim doesn't add up.
According to the Times of Israel, bro? Really?
What is
the civilian to combatant ratio is about around...
1.4-to-1.
The IDF claims when Netanyahu got up in front of Congress and blatantly lied to the American people.
Again, it's less than 2-to-1. That's never been done in history.
And then smeared peaceful protesters and then lied about the civilian to combatant ratio. According to the IDF, look, that many independent doctors from the West have claimed that there is a high likelihood that the civilian to combatant ratio is way more than 1-to-5. And it's extremely difficult to find out because Israel actually killed all the journalists.
Yeah, and
she also shut down the Al Jazeera agency. Israel is effectively a totalitarian society because they've shut down all speech against them. it is illegal in Israel to say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, according to what it could be viewed as anti-Semitic if you meet it like that. Maybe it doesn't. Anti-Semitism also is free speech. They raided the Al Jazeera news area in the West Bank. They killed a bunch of journalists that went in from the West Bank. They killed the Central Food Kitchen aid workers. They killed all the aid people carrying aid convoys into Gaza and basically shut it all down to systematically starve the people that are in Gaza. They have killed this is the deadliest war for journalists in the history of modern warfare.
It was also the deadliest attack, the October 7th attack
Yeah,
against Jews since the Holocaust. Also,
defending October 7th.
Is it not, or do you think it's the responsibility of the Israeli government to surrender just because Hamas is evil enough to hide behind civilians? Do you think Israel should have just surrendered? Like, what should they have done?
After October 7th, it could be very easy for Israel. My throat's kind of hurting out here. I need to drink some water. But after October 7th, it was very feasible, and that's what ended up happening, for Israel to just go in and conduct a war. Like, look, you just got attacked, and you need to retaliate, and if they didn't attack, it would probably be a politically unpopular move for Netanyahu. But if you think about it, what they have done has been of absolute detriment to them, because now everyone in Gaza supports Hamas. And like, look, after that, they should have, accepted all of the hostages back immediately. So then you have all the hostages, which are back, according to Axios reporting and leaked documents from the Israeli military. And you also have to, consider why this happened, because much of it was because of the Abraham Accords. Not to say that it was just because of the Abraham Accords, but you have to, there's no way that Israel could win without stopping all of their crimes, which is why it's been so difficult for them to come out victorious from this war. Because in order for Israel to have had a good response to October 7th, it would be to stop committing all of these horrible acts in the West Bank. Like, that kid that was just I remember reading that story a couple months ago. There was that kid who really wanted to be like Ronaldo in the West Bank, and he was always playing soccer and having fun with his friends, and one day he was just walking down the street and got shot for absolutely no reason and was killed. And so if you keep doing those things, it's going to keep happening. If Israel continued what they were most likely to do in committing all these crimes, it obviously would have continued to happen. And so you have to stop committing these crimes. You have to, I remember talking to you about this a couple months ago at the start of the school year, but you have to you have to then talk with Hamas leaders. You have to get Qatar to let them go. So some diplomatic mission with Qatar to force the Hamas leaders out of there. And you have to talk with the goal of this, what Israel needs to do is convince the people of Gaza that they are not evil. That's the fundamental thing that must happen. Hamas could never be defeated through this war. It will never happen. You'd have to drop a nuclear bomb on Gaza to completely destroy Hamas. And so the only way to win this war is to convince... I'm kind of rambling on here, but what you need to do is you need to convince the people of Gaza that Hamas is bad. Israel has not done that. And they... What do you mean?
They've literally done all of these things to help their civilians.
Their recruitment potential has absolutely skyrocketed. These these precautions, much of which are fake.
How are they fake?
They fake? Some of them are real and were earlier on in the war in order to please the international community. Much of them are gone now.
They're not gone.
Convoys of aid were way higher at the start of the war, even though they weren't anywhere near sufficient. They're now way lower. I listened to an interview by a guy who got his own aid convoy into Gaza, and he was talking about this rhetoric about how Hamas is just gonna steal all this loot and how the loot, how they're going to steal all this food and make it their own. And he talked about how easy it was to get his convoy into Gaza and to give it to all these people and to make sure it wasn't going to Hamas. He talked about how easy it was with the help he got from America to do that. And he talks about how easy it would be for the U.S. to prevent this aid from going to Hamas by just like staying with the aid convoys. But Israel doesn't want that, and they want to systematically starve all the people of Gaza. These precautions, like Israel, Netanyahu came to the U.S. and disgraced the entire American public and lied about what he's doing in this war. And he disgraced all of these peaceful protesters outside of where he was meeting, calling them like Iranian proxies, and just like many of these safety precautions. I would love if Israel would let journalists actually report on how they're going, but it's a telltale sign that they're not really working when they kill all the journalists, would you not say?
Yeah, but like all of these things, it's not Israel's responsibility to provide for the Palestinians. It is. Is it not Hamas's responsibility? Are they not in charge of Palestine? Shouldn't they be caring for their people?
If you're at a war with an opposing force and you're in an area which is... I mean, it's not that Israel has to pay for all this food to go through. They just have to let it go through. It's not that they have to it's not that Israel has to drop in and go and systematically provide all this food. It's just that they have to let it go through. They're preventing it from
because
going.
Again,
it's not that they're
what
not
is stopping it from Hamas just taking it?
Because
like
I was talking about, like I listened to this interview with this guy. I don't remember his name. I should remember these people's names. But he talked about how easy it was to prevent it from going to Hamas, and you just have to get the aid convoy into Gaza and stay with it as it goes and hand out the food to the people. And
so Israel's supposed to do that?
You don't just send in a convoy and just like say whatever, here's a bunch of food. You have to stay with it. Israel has to let the U.S. do that, and the U.S. should be doing that. Like, yeah, if you are doing something and conducting this war in such a heavily urban area, you have to let these things go through. You have to allow people to let these aid convoys in. You have to let the aid convoys in, right? Like,
yeah, but again, with the whole thing, staying with it, but like, how is the recruitment potential higher for Hamas? Like, how do the Palestinian people like Hamas right now? Like, how?
Like, much of the war in Gaza... We should end this soon, because it's like an hour and 5 minutes now. But much of this, of course, before this war, the people of Gaza weren't really like jazzed about Hamas. You hear
taking all the money.
I mean, like, they didn't really like Hamas. And when you see after October 7th parading bodies through the street and people hoorah and all this stuff, I mean, that's where they get their food from. They get their food from Hamas. They kind of have to support Hamas if they want to live. But this, like, people in Gaza have felt so much destruction and death and just like brutality against them that they have basically no choice but to join Hamas.
Bro, but all of
Crystal Ball did a monologue about that like a couple months ago. It was a pretty long time ago. And she talked about how basically the only thing stopping Hamas from having infinite recruits is the amount of guns that they have and the amount of gear that they have. There are so many people in Gaza that are so hyped up to join Hamas right now because they felt so much destruction. So I'll kind of end with this. My closing sentiment is really what I want to drill in. If Israel's war is so just and Israel is conducting such an amazing, great war right now, why did they kill all the journalists? And why aren't they letting the world see what they're doing?
Okay. My closing statement, I guess, will be Hamas could end this war today by surrendering. Instead, they chose not to surrender.
So just like let Israel do whatever they want with them.
Wait, what?
So just like let Israel do whatever they want and like put a bunch of settlements in Gaza and just completely let Israel have free reign over the Gaza Strip. I don't know how. Whatever.
I mean, first of all, you need to remove the Palestinian stipends that literally provide money and food for the families of the people that kill Israelites. But anyway, I feel like Israel. I really don't. Yeah, again, my closing statements. I feel like it's not a genocide just because of all the measures they've taken and the more people being born than dying. I feel like all of these things kind of speak for themselves, all the aid that they've sent to try to help it, and they're doing a good thing, trying to kill terrorists. So.
Well, that kind of went on a pretty long time, but I think it was a valuable debate. Maybe we should do that officially sometime or have a guest on that's that's pro-Palestine and pro-Israel, but that's all that we have today. Thank you for listening to the Overshadowed podcast. We will make sure that we upload this week for the weekdays, and have a good day.
Yep.